Hello, my name is Mark Gibson, and you're listening to the podcast version of the Teagasc Signpost Series, a weekly webinar that promotes and examines sustainability in Irish farming.
Good morning and welcome to this morning's Signpost webinar. We're delighted to be back after a short summer break, so we're very well refreshed. National Heritage Week is an initiative of the Heritage Council and it celebrates all things heritage. It brings together communities, families, organisations, cultural institutions, academics and enthusiasts to build awareness of the value of heritage and support its conservation. And it focuses on natural, built and cultural heritage. This year, National Heritage Week begins this weekend and goes through to the following weekend. And the overarching theme this year is on connections, roots and networks. And we're delighted to be joined this morning by Ronan Healy. Ronan is the project manager for the National Heritage Week. Ronan, you're very welcome.
Good morning. Yes, I'm delighted to be here.
And we're also joined by John Dwyer, who is chair of the Pilgrim Paths of Ireland.
Thank you very much for the invite. Looking forward.
John, and you're also the author of the first guidebook of the Irish Pilgrim Paths. A published author with Guild Publishers. If anybody is looking to get the definitive guide of our Irish Pilgrim Paths.
Well, you have to start somewhere, but anyway, it has actually done a good lot to get footfall onto the paths. Okay, it's great, and it's a huge area, I think, of growth of people wanting to use pilgrim paths, and I suppose with the Spanish example of the Camino, we have our own pilgrim paths here that have just as much history, I suppose, around them. Not only that, 500 years older than the Camino, just to get
very good, very good. Okay, so welcome Catherine here this morning as well. Catherine will be helping with questions and outlining some of the events that will be happening in conjunction with the National Heritage Week as well. Might come to you then, Ronan, first. I think you're going to give us an outline of the Heritage Week, what it's about, and maybe some of the key themes and events in Heritage Week.
As you said, Pat, I'm going to do a little introduction on Heritage Week before John speaks, just to set the scene, basically, of what's happening. So, first of all, about the Heritage Council. So, I work for the Heritage Council, and we manage National Heritage Week. The Heritage Council established in 1995, and our role is to advise, education, and raise awareness. And we run a number of programs. We have a grants program, including the Traditional Farm Buildings program, which I know you had Anna here before speaking on it in the previous webinar. We also run a museum standards program, heritagemaps.ie. We have to manage the Irish Wall Town Network, and there's a Heritage in Schools program where we invite heritage experts go into primary schools in Ireland and educate children on different aspects of our heritage. My role is project manager of National Heritage Week, and I manage National Heritage Week across the country, though I don't organise events myself because they are organised by individuals and groups who I'm going to mention now. So what is National Heritage Week? It's one of Ireland's largest festivals. The last estimate, we have over 400,000 people participating. It runs over 9 days. So as Pat said, starting tomorrow, Saturday, and it runs until the following Sunday. So an Irish week, someone said to me, so a week in a day. It's an all-island event. So we have events in 30 of our 32 counties, I think, this year, which is very exciting. It's in person and online. So we majority of events now are in person, but online projects were started during COVID, and we have kept them on for people who can't participate in person. 2023, there was over 1,900 events. This year, I'm happy to say we've over 2,200 events happening across the country starting tomorrow. And if you need to know what's on, heritageweek.ie is a home of National Heritage Week. A quick mention of the event organisers, because I said I don't organise any events myself. It's all down to people in the community. So it's people like yourselves who are watching here now. It's community groups, it's museums, it's individuals, it's state bodies, and OPW sites organise a lot of events as well. So it's really practitioners, people in traditional skills and crafts, but also people that have an interest in their local history and the local architecture that might put on events just for the community. So it's a very local event. Well, although we say it's National Heritage Week, most events are concentrated in localities, and it's a way of you to get out and explore and learn a bit about the history of your locality. This is some examples of what sort of events we could see. This is from last year, but as I said, you can do everything from take a steam train to learn how to do butter making, to visiting old farmhouse cottages, or even I have down here in Cavan, they had a vintage machinery event last year, and the same is going to happen again for this year. A quick mention of our partners. We work with a number of partners, including Forge Ireland, OPW, as I said, mentioned, and Irish Landmark Trusts. And then we also have our partners in local government in terms of the heritage officers and the biodiversity officers, which are in almost all local authorities now. And they are they facilitate Heritage Week on the ground. They work with people in the communities in terms of managing events and helping them run events. The few theme days I'll mention quickly for Heritage Week. The first one is Wild Child Day. That's on the last Saturday, so it'll be on Saturday week. And that's the day where we encourage children and their families to get out and explore nature, our biodiversity and landscape. So it's a way of encouraging children to learn about the nature, so about the flora, the fauna, the fish in the rivers, the insects, the animals, and then to interact and see them up close. And so often children might be disengaged from their natural heritage in terms of what's in their landscape. And that's one way we'd like to encourage it. And then our other theme day is Water Heritage Day, which is on the final Sunday of Heritage Week. And that takes place on the Sunday 25th this year. And it's a way for people to explore the water heritage. So we run this in conjunction with Law Pro, which is the local authority's water program. And we invite people to go explore the rivers, the lakes, the seas around us. Another theme day is the Heritage Open Door. And actually that date is wrong. It's actually tomorrow, Saturday, is taking place. And it's a chance to explore properties across Ireland that are not usually open for National Heritage Week. So that might be historic properties, but it might be vernacular buildings, so traditional farm buildings. And this year, it's a program that's been running in Cork City for a number of years, but we've decided to expand it nationally this year. So it's running in Donegal and Offaly as well as Cork City. So worth checking out as well. A brief mention then of the team is Connections, Roots and Networks, Pat said. So three different aspects to it. The connections, how we connect to each other. That's cultural connections as well as physical connections. The roots is the routeways, the boreens, everything from boreens to roads to rivers, and as John might mention later, the pilgrim paths as well, we want to celebrate. And then the networks, the different networks that we can be part of in terms of promoting our heritage. So if you're a traditional crafts person, you might be part of a particular network, or if you're into your historic buildings, you might be part of a different network. And 2024 we see as an opportunity to explore these connections that we have with each other. So that's a brief summary of the different aspects, the connections, the roots, as I said, and the networks. A quick mention then finally on how to find what's on for National Heritage Week. So National Heritage Week, heritageweek.ie is the home of National Heritage Week, and that's where you find the events. So there's no paper guide. I'm sure some of you might remember a few years ago we used to do a paper guide. That's gone now, so all events are on heritageweek.ie. And the way to find out what's happening is to click on heritageweek.ie. You click on what's on, and you'll be able to scroll events. So you can also create, let me just show you play this. So if you click on what's on, you'll be able to find the events that you want. So you can either search for a keyword, you can also filter events. So you can decide if you want a particular aspect you want to look for, or if you want to search by a type of event, a particular date, event type, if it's a talk or if it's a demonstration, you can select the type, or if the event features. So for example, if it's autism friendly, if car parking is available, if it's accessible. And then you can also select by location. Obviously, if you want to go just to county you're resident, or if you're visiting another county, you can select the county as well. And then you can see here, you can just tick the type you want. As you can see here, there's no entries at the time for the what the filter I selected, but you should find plenty of events now. So that's a simple way of how you find events what's on. And then the next thing you might do is when you go scroll through events, you can click on the heart button beside events, and that leads you to my events trail, where you can create your own schedule of events, and you can print that, you can email that, or you can share it with yourself. So it's a great way of creating your own personalized schedule for your events for a National Heritage Week. So briefly, that's my details. I'm sure I'll be happy to take questions at the end, but if you have any questions, that's my email in terms of Heritage Week, and I'm happy to answer any questions later on after John speaks. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Ronan. John, we'll come to you then for the presentation on the Pilgrim Trails.
Okay, well then, I'm John Dwyer anyway, and just give a brief background to myself. My main thing most of my life, I've been a hill walker and I suppose kind of mountain climber as well. Spent a lot of time going off down to the Alps, over to Scotland in winter, all kinds of mad things like that. But between the jigs and the reels anyway, I won't go into it. I ended up with a column in the Irish Times writing about walks in Ireland. And that led on then to Collins Press, who were doing a lot of walking guides. And they rang me up one day and said, would I do a guide to my own counties, which is Tipperary and then Waterford as well. I said yes, ran out a nice little book, got it out and said, that's the end. I'm a published author now. That's the end of the whole thing. And, glad to see your own book there. And that was it. But when I was out about 6 months, they rang me again and they said, well, I do another book. So I thought they must have liked the first one. And then they dropped the bombshell about the Pilgrim Paths of Ireland. And even though he had a big interest always in history, the Pilgrim Paths of Ireland seemed to me, a bit esoteric, didn't know much about it. God, I really don't know much about these. And so I had to think about it. So we chatted and I said, look, what I'll do is I'll walk the Pilgrim Paths and I'll write it as a travelogue. In other words, my own experiences of them, which with working title actually maybe deservedly was Sinner on the Saints Road. So I started off then, so just going to it briefly then, that's my first book. I started off then, I did a good lot of them, but this is the Tóthar Fáric. And we just mentioned that earlier on there when we were in the intro. The Tóthar Fáric is about, it's at least, we're certain it's 500 years older than the Camino, going back to very early Christian times, but almost certainly a pilgrim path that was Christianized. And of course, this is up in County Mayo, for any people who are listening here in Mayo, and it's a beautiful path. And but almost certainly there would have been Croagh Patrick, Cruachanagli then was sacred to the pagan people of Ireland before Christianity, and that was probably their path. And then the easy thing to do when Christianity came to Ireland was to just Christianize it, put the Christian cross on it. So then move on, and there it is. So again, you can see that. That's what I discovered. Mountains like that tend to stand out and are quite beautiful. We tend to load them with mythology, with myths, with spirituality, make them the abode of the gods, and Croagh Patrick is no exception there. And then, of course, this is the tradition. And what you find about pilgrimage is, while his religion has been, become very much, I think, these days, very much the orbit of people, like myself with grey hair and that, and young people, that pilgrimage tends to draw people of all ages. And of course, there's a huge tradition, talking to an Irish audience, not going to waste time saying too much about it. And there's the church then that's up on top of the mountain, built in 1906. No problem, no planning permission, no nothing required. Try and do that today. But anyway, it's there now, and it's a part of our heritage. Then moved on down here. And this is it then. So this all had me thinking then. And what I would have thought about here, we're talking about indulgences. What was the motivation in the past for people to go on pilgrimage? And the journey was a pain in the neck. You got the destination, what was all about. And why was the destination so important? Well, for 1,000 years, the Christian church preached, if you were good, you went to heaven. If you were bad, you went to hell. And there was no escaping. Once you were there, you were there. At the Council of Leon, they proposed this new thing, which was purgatory, an in-between place. And it took, over 1,200 years for this idea to come along. But that opened up a whole new landscape then, because what you had the idea firstly then, that if you did good works here, you could escape purgatory yourself. The gold star then became the plenary indulgence, and you could get that for yourself. So you'd come away with a completely clean soul, or get plenary indulgence, which was the gold star, for somebody who's already passed away. And if they're in purgatory, wow, they wing straight to heaven. So it's a very, very compelling vision. And most pilgrim walkers in the medieval period basically were looking for grace in the form of indulgences. Then we move on. But the question is then, and I had plenty of time when I was out doing the pilgrim paths to wonder why in the modern world people aren't looking for indulgences, by the way, at present. So what are they looking for? And this is what I came up with. You see, when you're walking all these paths on your own, you have loads of time. And this is what I worked out anyway for myself. And it's contained in the acronym DARES. And the in other words, and why do people come? Discovery, seeking a journey. Is that slightly in the way now? Okay. Now, seeking a journey of self-discovery. So that's what most modern-day pilgrim walking is about. Medieval pilgrims wouldn't have been trying to find themselves, just trying to get to heaven. The next one is appreciation for a favor bestowed. So it could be anything. Somebody is cured of a fatal disease, or it could be exams. It's Johnny who didn't do a tap of work and he ended up with 400 points in the leaving cert. Oh my God. So I'll do it an appreciation. And then of course, in memory of someone who has passed away or is ill. So that would be big motivation on the Camino, and coming in now on the Irish pilgrim paths as well. You see it on some of them and mementos on it. And then escape. So that is one of the things I suppose I always think in life, we should always take time off, whether on pilgrim paths or not, because we don't know that the pressures of life is becoming too much for us until we step off. And then we suddenly realize, yes, we were on a treadmill. And I think pilgrim walking then fills that purpose in the modern world, to step away, slow down, have time to think, and only one concern, putting one foot in front of the other. And then simplification, it follows on from the last one, but trying to juggle 4 or 5 balls in the air at one time, we stopped doing that. And now we're just thinking, feed, food and sleep is what we need when we're on a pilgrim walk. So there we are. Then I went down to Clonmacnoise, and that would have been one of the very early pilgrim sites in Ireland, more a centre of learning than anything else. I suppose we don't use the term Dark Ages as much in Europe when the Roman Empire fell, but certainly it was a time learning didn't flourish, but Ireland wasn't affected by that. So a lot of people came to rediscover Christianity, because if you're speaking about after the fall of the Roman Empire, even though the Roman Empire was Christianized, Christianity got pushed back, and then you had, of course, the Irish missionaries going abroad and bringing back Christianity back to Europe, and then people coming to study in Ireland. Island of Saints and scholars, probably a simplification, but some truth in it. And there we are, Clonmacnoise at the centre of Ireland. And again, the great thing about all these routeways we're discovering is that you think it's an out-of-the-way place today, but in those days it wasn't. I was talking to an academic historian one time, and he said, you think Clonmacnoise is in an out-of-the-way place, but it's not. An awful lot of the routeways that were there in the medieval period for pilgrimage were along with waterborne travel. So, and at that stage, the Shannon was what he called the M1 of Ireland. We're going on then, and we going here, and we have St. Kevin's Way. And this, again, would have crossed the Wicklow Gap. So it would have been St. Kevin, this is an ancient routeway running either from Ballymount or from Hollywood. And St. Kevin is reputed to have been quite holy, like most of those saints, as you'd expect. But he was so holy that he was in an abbey in what is now Tala, and felt there was too many people around diverting him from God. So he just took off one day, made his way through the Wicklow Mountains, and lived in a cave for a while and became a hermit there. But the whole thing, of course, backfired on him because he had such a reputation for holiness. The story goes that followers came along, and hey presto, there was a monastery there as well as that. And of course, that's in that wonderful place called Vendalock. So there is, a path all the way across, and I'll talk about how people can do that later on. And that is then a statue looking down on the trail there of St. Kevin. And there then is Glendalough, of course, the glen of two lochs, and in itself, anyway, a beautiful place. And that's where St. Kevin's Way ends in the monastic site. Now we move on here then, and we go down to Kerry. And again, we get the same thing. This is Ventry Beach, the start point for the Croissant and Nave. And you're thinking, Croissant and Nave, why, is it starting there at a beach? And the answer is, of course, again, a lot of travel of any kind for trade or other purposes, but certainly pilgrim travel, the simplest, easiest way to do it was to come by boat. So there was a lot of trade up and down the west coast. So if you wanted to come down here and do the Croissant and Nave, the thing would have been to find somebody who was trading and hitch a ride down along and land there. So that's how they might have had their own boats as well. And then, of course, these are some of the most wonderful heritage, and how we have come, I suppose, to appreciate heritage more. And I was just talking to a man lately, and he was down studying Irish, believe it or not, when he's old enough to be down there in sometime the early 1940s or early 50s. And he told me, at that stage, we didn't look on heritage in the same way. And a farmer had 3 calves actually housed inside in Gallerus Oratory. Well, we've come on from that. It's a wonderful example of Hiberno-Romanesque architecture, and not a drop of water has got in about 1,000 years. A great piece of heritage. And, any of the buildings any of us are in today, will they still be standing and keeping out water in 1,000 years? I doubt it. And then there we are, Kilmalcadar. And Gallerus is where all the buses come. But Kilmalcadar I prefer because it's off the main pilgrim route. And I love there. I remember one day out there and watching the sun going down over the Atlantic on its way across towards the United States. And there's a Celtic cross there. There's Owen writing there as well. One of my favorite places of pilgrimage in Ireland. And of course, the Dingle, I'm just back from actually Dingle myself, and the place down there is filled with heritage, of course, as everybody in the Heritage Council is well aware. And then this one I hadn't heard of at the time when I was writing up the book. So it's St. Finbarr's Pilgrim Path. And of course, so what you will find in Ireland, generally speaking, with those routeways, the north of the country the paths there tend to be dominated by a St. Patrick, or to an extent then St. Bridget. But when you come into the deep south, there seems to be individualism down there. So you get very little about St. Patrick in Cork, because St. Finbar, their own saint, is dominant. Again, we're talking about St. Declan is there in Waterford, and St. Brendan in Kerry. Patrick hardly gets a look in. So there we are. So that's a walk from Drimoleague in West Cork. So Finbarr came there, urged people to repent and follow him, and some did, and he set up a monastery at Gougaunbarra, and then is reputed to have become Bishop of Cork. But that's a wonderful route. Again, lots of heritage, and that's the great thing about pilgrim paths. It's the living heritage that makes these paths special. It's the heritage that is all around that has come down to us. Whereas we'll say the Kerry Way, generally speaking, a pristine area is what people are looking for there. They'd want a mountain almost that hardly anybody has ever walked on before. But pilgrim paths, what gives the special thing about that is the reminders of the pilgrims who have come this way in the past. And there we are. And there's an example. I just came upon that one evening. And of course, West Cork is full of these stone circles. And that was when I was the only person there in the Shehy Mountains. And, but it's again a reminder. And you have to think, the people who built these, the people, what were they thinking? And I'm saying it's so hard to get those in. So they're obviously in some ways trying to communicate a message to future generations about our heritage. And I think the message we take from it then, we all take our own message from that. And there we are then into Gougaunbarra, one of the most beautiful places in Ireland. Again, redolent with heritage. And a great thing about it is it has never really, it's busy enough, but it never really become a huge mass tourism destination. And it's a place to come and be reflective. Again, that's where St. Finbarr's path ends. And then I would do the benefits of pilgrim walking then. Pilgrim walkers overnight in remote locations. So I would argue that in fact, it's what you call slow tourism. So if you are walking St. Finbarr's Pilgrim Path, well, you're not going to walk into Bantry. You're more likely to seek accommodation out as close as you possibly can, believe me, when you're walking this to the trail. So what I think the pilgrim walking does is it goes against the trend which we see very strongly in tourism, where tourism in Ireland and worldwide indeed is tending to urbanize. So you get Dublin, you get huge amounts of the tourism, maybe 40% of the total tourism spend in there, and then you get Killarney, Cork, Galway, maybe Westwood, and all the spending centralized there. So it pulls. That's the benefit for communities. It pulls spending into communities. Pilgrim walkers spend more than twice the average. Now, they're not the last of the big spenders. The main reason is it's slow tourism. It takes longer, so they're around for longer. Basically, you can't go in and do a pilgrim path in a weekend. And investment costs tend to be low. So just again on a point on that, about 15 years ago, Titanic Belfast was opened up. Loads of money. Tony Blair had his checkbook out, so it wasn't a problem. But 100 million sterling. St. Declan's Way, which I'll be talking about later on, was reopened there in 2001, and the cost of getting it ready for reopening was about 250,000 euros. So, and again, if you go into we'll say, if you're looking at the Titanic, if you went in once, I've been in it once, we wouldn't go in again. But you might, if you like it, very likely walk a pilgrim path again and come back. And people come back again and again to the Camino. So that can be the Irish pilgrim paths as well. And then incentives, provision of additional overnight accommodation in Routeways. And we have been losing our B&Bs very badly. That has been a huge loss in kind of, getting people closer to rural Ireland. I think pilgrim paths have a way that can be changed. Other benefits of developing pilgrim walks then, so if you are in a community around the place, you need to have a tradition of pilgrim walking there, but that's very, very common across Ireland anyway. Physical and mental health benefits. I mean, green spaces and that, won't get into the research, but makes us all feel better. You go for a walk in the woods or whatever it is, if it's not a pilgrim path, you will generally feel better than when you went out. Attracts discerning tourists. Now, you're on dangerous ground here, but let's face it, the people who come into Ireland to walk our pilgrim paths or indeed go down through the Camino, they're not exactly, the clubbers who go to Ibiza. So I think they fit more seamlessly into a rural community. Connectedness with nature. And of course, that's what the Heritage Council are doing all the time, and seeing not just our built heritage, but our natural heritage and our cultural heritage as well. And our pilgrim paths are part of our cultural heritage. But the great thing is they expose us to our natural heritage, and they expose us to some built heritage along the way as well. And community cohesion. So, for example, now I'll be talking about that later on. St. Declan's Way has just opened up. That was a 7-year effort by communities all the way from Cashel down to Ardmore, and they all came together. So now they're working together, and they're quite passionate about it, and they have a common bond there. So that is one of the things that gives something to bring communities together. Environmental protection. Well, when people become aware of these paths or whatever, they realize then pretty quickly that, the built heritage along the way, the natural heritage must be protected. It suddenly becomes aware of it. Rural development, bringing spending to rural areas. And then, of course, the important thing is pilgrim walking is about as kind to the environment as tourism can be. It's by its nature, it's extremely low impact. Walking is by far the kindest way to do something, the environment. So it has, it has a huge amount of benefits. And there we are then, you wouldn't think of this, but that's, people might not have known it, but Connacht na Dobber in Kerry, going back maybe 2,000 years, original pilgrimage was there for the festival of Bealtaine. But that tradition is going on to this day, and there are people going up the mountain. And again, you can see these people are on pilgrimage with a beautiful view. If you really look tightly there, you'll see Skellig Michael and that out there in the background. And, how, if you want to get oneness with nature, that's the perfect example of it. And then we get to the top. There's the cross on the top, and there's the view, looking out over onto the ocean from the top there over South Kerry and Valentia Island. My God, what a view. Anyway, at the end of all that, then, and I'm conscious of time, and Pat can pop in when he wants to stop me. But Pilgrimage, then, Pat's. This was the book that resulted from all of that, and that book is still there. It's with it started off very slowly, actually, but it has actually been reprinted 5 times, and I'm now working on a new edition as well as that. So, so all my holidays at the moment are kind of busman's holidays around doing something. But sure, I love it. But that's and that's available from Gill Books then. So that was the result. Now, so we'll move on then. Pilgrim Paths, building connections. So that's the whole theme here. And I think it's a wonderful way, because not only does it build connections in communities, but the paths tend to join one community. St. Finbarr's joins Drimolly, Cailkin and Gugan Barra. So the communities become aware of each other as well. So it's connections between communities. And so connections to Pilgrim's Past, people like that idea of, a connection in our area, what pilgrims walk past here. Pilgrims on the route. So when you are walking it, you find sometimes you're doing St. Declan's Way, and I sometimes meet them on the Rock of Cashel where it starts, and they don't know each other. And then I meet them at the end, and they're all friendly, and they're kissing and hugging and exchanging numbers and all that kind of thing. So it does bring people together. Others in the local community. So in the community as well, they get proud of their pilgrim path. They want to be involved in it, and so they get closer to other people. Local heritage, it builds an awareness. So if some group in Meath decide that there is a pilgrim path somewhere there and they want to reinvigorate it, they'll straight away have to look at the heritage along the route, and in doing that, then the heritage will become more valuable to them. And local landowners as well as that. Then to the walk scheme and that, local landowners are involved. I'll be talking later on the reopening of St. Declan's Way, around 45, I think, landowners involved in that, to the invaluable walk scheme as well. And that has been great, because when I started involved with walking first, landowners felt excluded. Maybe they're not fully included now, but certainly we've come a long way in bringing them inside the tent, and certainly has happened on St. Declan's Way. And then building a sense of place, a sense of belonging. We only know ourselves through our history. If you wipe out somebody's memory, which is the history, you don't know who you are. So building a sense of place is what Pilgrim Paths can do. Pilgrim Paths in Ireland, then, that's the national representative body for Irish Pilgrim Paths. And for my sins, I'm in the unpaid role, strictly as chairman, but sure, I love it anyway. And founded in 2013, the aim is to build connections between the groups involved with Ireland's principal penitential paths. Its objective is to promote Ireland's historic pilgrim routes and increase tourism spending in rural communities, which is a very, very good thing. So that's the idea. It's a long, hard battle, but I think, we are kind of winning at this stage. And opportunity to connect with journeys taken by pilgrim paths. Now, there's an Irish pilgrim passport then, and those completing the passport are awarded a Taistis Ilrachta. And that's the same as what you get on the Camino, the Compostela on the Camino. And it's a pilgrim certificate from Ballintubber Abbey. So to do that, again, it's building connections. So we've connected together in Pilgrim Paths Ireland 5 routes under this passport scheme, and you have to walk 120 kilometres. But since it's not a linear walk, you can spread it out over a summer or 2 summers or whatever you want to. You can spread it out. So there's an incentive to go to different parts of the country. And you obtain your local stamp from the local community, you send them all the stamps onto Ballintubber, and you get your certificate. And this should be the passport. And there it is. That's an example of the passport for Ireland's medieval pilgrim paths, and that's the certificate you get at the end from St. Father Frank Fahey, Ballintubber Abbey. But again, even though that's obviously a Catholic abbey, it's completely non-denominational. That's the whole idea of Pilgrim Paths Ireland. Everybody takes what is important to them out of the paths. So I'll just run down through this then, and I hope I'm not going on too long, but scenery, if you do trail walking, pilgrim walking, I've tried to figure out the difference between the two. So trail walking, most people, as I mentioned, like you're doing the Kerry Way, scenery is central to the experience. Without scenery, you wouldn't do it. Nobody, scenery is grand if you're going out to the Camino or you're doing St. Declan's Way, not the primary focus for most people doing it. Not concerned with who has walked the route previously with trail walking. In fact, if nobody ever walked it before, you probably say, oh, that was great, I did something completely new. And then pilgrim walking, a sense of walking in the footsteps of pilgrims past. That's highly important. Route doesn't need a destination. I'm just using the Kerry Way as an example because I've written another book about that as well. But the thing is that, again, the Kerry Way starts in Killarney and finishes in Killarney. So you can call Killarney a destination, but you could just stay there in the first place. So, the mystical paths of Ireland lead somewhere endowed with spirituality or mysticism. And that is important. Whereas even you call Killarney a destination, mysticism, it would escape me when I'm there when it's crowded in August anyway. I counter others with others incidental. So some people have gone off and walked the Kerry Way and told me the less people they met, the better. That's what they want, the isolation. Meeting other people is an important part. So there's the collegiality of the route, the coming together on the route. And, that is important. Likes unpopulated, pristine environments where there's very little footfall, echoes from the past reinforce the experience. So when you're doing St. Declan's Way, the great castle, the abbeys along the way, the great castle in Care, those kind of things, Melleray Abbey, all have echoes from the past. They're important. Little emphasis on history and trail walking offers a sense of journeying through history. So you've the different layers of history that were cast on the landscape. So you have, for example, the Rock of Cashel, if you're talking about St. Declan's Way, very early Christian period there. But then you have the Norman period with the great castle in Care, as well as that. You have the medieval monastic period with abbeys with St. Ardfenan, and then early Christian again at Ardmore. And then it's a physical journey. That's what trail walking is about, more, and then pilgrim path, more an inner journey than a physical journey. People expect in doing a pilgrim route, if they don't make it obvious at a subconscious level, that in some way they will be better or transformed or have more understanding at the end of the route. And there we are then, I'm just blasting on through this then, St. Declan's Way, crossing the Knockmeal Down Mountains, and there are some people on it, opened in 2021. And it's all about slow tourism then. So the idea is we're arguing that in the modern world, people want to replacing whistle-stop tourism. The bus stops, everybody hops out, bang, take your picture, all back on the bus so that you can, in 1 week, you can see all the selfie points in Ireland. That's not what this kind of tourism is about. Slow travel is on the rise internationally, and one destination is fully discovered. And I think in a sustainable and experiential way, and sustainable is terribly important. Light footfall, and that I think is exactly what pilgrim tourism does, allows you to slow down, smell the flowers along the way, and understand the heritage. And St. Declan's Way is aimed at this market, okay? And then we won't get into that too much, but it commemorates that St. Declan came up to meet St. Patrick at the Rock of Cashel because they were the two early Christian saints in Ireland. They kind of carved up Ireland between them, and St. Declan held on to the Daisha, became the bishop down there, but Patrick became primate of all Ireland eventually in Armagh. So that's the tradition behind the whole thing. In a way, I wouldn't, if anyone said to me, will you swear St. Declan was there, you're 100% certain? Of course we're not. But the thing is, the important thing about pilgrim paths isn't the original saint. It's that over the medieval period, lots of people would have walked from Tipperary down to Ardmore in pilgrimage. For us, that's what creates the path. The community, then, this is reopening St. Declan's Way, just an experience for people. The community successfully negotiated permissive access agreements with over 50, I thought it was 45, landowners in Waterford and Tipperary between 2015 and 18. That's it. They were all volunteers. So that's a huge effort for them. So we say a bull of bus for them. And then in 2021, it was opened and it has joined the walk scheme. So the farmers are getting something back from it. And that is the route anyway. So it's, as I say, apart from all the twists and turns, it's a fairly direct route. So it runs from the Rock of Cashel down to Ardmore. And there it is. There's some people walking on it. And that's approaching Mount Melleray Abbey. And of course, there's a lot of footfall on it now. It's not the Camino yet, but there's a couple of thousand people doing it every year, we would estimate. And from the Rock of Cashel to Ardmore, County Water. And this is then distance 115 kilometres. So if we put on then our commercial hat there, 115 kilometres is roughly what most people will do in a 1 week walking holiday if they come in from abroad. But that's what they on average do on the Camino. So it is perfect for a walking holiday. The longest pilgrim path in Ireland, and links Ardmore, full of heritage, Lismore, great centre of learning, Mount Mallory, 19th century Cistercian Abbey, Ladies Abbey, medieval Abbey, Clare Castle, Norman period, Rock of Cashel, early Christian and pre-Christian. And there's some of the walk, there's some people walking on it. A local community group, again, all volunteers, called Knockmeal Down Active. They organise a huge walk on it every year. On each stage of the walk, on average, it takes 6 stages to do it. On each one, they have about 250 to 300 walkers on it. And there's a group, they're one of their groups crossing the Knockmeal Down Mountains. And, it's a great shot of people in pilgrimage there. And this is Mallory Abbey then, and the monks there are totally in cooperation with this. And they are opening a pilgrim hostel there as well. So people can get the benefit of overnighting in the peace of a mountain monastery as well as that. And that's just Lismore, one of the heritage towns along the route. Won't get into it. This is a Hindu gateway. You pass through why that's there, what it's doing in water. But I don't have time to explain all of that. But I just say it's in my book. And then there's the great finish then. You come into Ardmore, and a tradition has now evolved that pilgrims arrive there and they really get in touch with nature. In other words, getting closer. And tradition has been they take off their boots, they take off their socks, they walk, and they really feel the sand, the connection with nature. And some of them then will go out and walk at the edge of the ocean as well and feel that same connection with nature that, had St. Declan been walking along there, he would felt it in exactly the same ocean, exactly the same feeling. And there we are then, Ardmore and the Round Tower now. We won't get, Round Tower is much later. Are you trying to come in there, Pat? No?
Yeah, you're okay. I'm just
about to finish anyway.
Kind of out of time, but
and now this is another book I have out then, 50 Best Irish Walks, and believe it or not, that's with Cork. But what I have in there is St. Declan's Way. When I did my book on the Pilgrim Paths of Ireland, which I'm now revising and go in, but at the moment it wasn't in it because it hadn't been opened. You couldn't walk it. A lot of work had to be done. So that my book came out about 12 years ago. So in 2021 then, St. Declan's Way was open. So as a compromise, I have this book, 50 Best Irish Walks, and we put in the day-by-day guide to St. Declan's Way is contained in that as well as that. And in conclusion then, I would say we're not in a post-religious age. I don't think religion in the broad sense of the word will ever die, because the thing is, religion is all about a quest for meaning. What are we doing there? What is the proper way? What's a good way to live your life? And those questions are always going to be there. But what's happened is religion is moving from highly formal. If you look back to maybe, 100 years ago in Ireland, highly formalized religion, a very clear gateway to heaven, a very clear gateway to hell as well. Now it's much more informal. And holidays are increasingly seen as a time for personal or spiritual growth. In some way, you do the things that you can't do because of the pressures of work. This trend will, I believe, expand in the future. And connectedness with nature, heritage, and culture, I think, will be a very important part of that. Ireland has a strong reputation for spirituality going back to pre-Christian times. And we should now invest, I think, in positioning Ireland. We need to get the message out there that we do have 300 kilometres of pilgrim walking in Ireland. And and I'm writing about all of that too. The heritage section, I've been invited by the Heritage Council. It's a clearer idea of my philosophy of pilgrim walking. It's in the Heritage Council supplement, I think it's out today, isn't it, Ronan? But anyway,
Yeah, out today in the Irish Times.
Okay, well, I'm in that anyway. Okay.
Yes, you are.
Thank you very much. Listen, that was incredible. It really was. Just it would inspire you to get out there and start doing what we probably all should be doing a lot more of. Get out into nature. We have questions coming in. Catherine, you just wanted to introduce a couple of upcoming events. So if you wanted to do that there now.
Yeah, just waiting. John can stop
Stop
sharing.
sharing, yeah, John.
Yeah, okay. Wait, I get
And can I just say, how fantastic it was. And I think the first comment that came in there was the comment was, John would be a great man to go on a walk with. He'd shorten the journey. So I think we could all agree with that.
Yorick and Boher doing, yes.
Just before we go into the questions and to give the lads a break for a minute, I was just going to, not part of Heritage Week, but it is in conjunction with the Heritage Council. We have two things I just wanted to bring your attention to before they get booked out. And I'll present review. The first one Yvonne showed in the intro, and we'll be putting a link into the chat if anybody wants to book for a limited number of free places on our Farmland by lots of places yet, but Farmland Biodiversity event in Burcastle Domain on Wednesday, the 28th of August from 11 to 3 p.m. So we have guest speakers, John Feehan, Helen Sheridan and Aina Lilauna talking about farmland biodiversity. And we are going to Burr because there's a fantastic meadow there, which is what farmers are now doing under acres. They are being paid for the ecosystem services that old grassland delivers. So we have lots of organisations in there. You'll see them when you go into the event who will be on there on the day. So if you want to book that, Yvonne has put the link into the chat. Go and book it now if you want to go to that event in Burcastle Domain. And just the second point then, we're also launching Hedgerow Week there. But if anybody wants to learn more about hedgerow planting and management, it's easy to remember, 11 o'clock during Hedgerow Week, we have an event in each of 5 Teagasc farms. So running from Ballyhaise around the country, Ballyhaise, Athenry, Clonakilty, Curtains in Moore Park and Kildalton. So again, all details on our website. So,
and Catherine, just to I suppose explain, you have in each of those sites hedgerows of varying ages. So you're dealing with the management of 3-year-old, 4-year-old hedges, new planting, exactly what to do. So it's an infrastructure that you put in place in those sites.
They're a great discussion point, and I think a lot of people. There are still a huge amount of farmers have to plant hedges this autumn, and they really need to know what they're doing. So if you're an advisor to promote it to your clients, so that they will get the hedge planting right. Yeah. So
and in relation to Burr, I presume it's, if you ever want to know what a score of 10 looks like on a meadow, that's one that would do that for you.
That's it, and I think we want to alert the general public about the good work farmers are doing on that line now. So yeah. So will I start the questions? Or
if you want, fire ahead.
Yeah, you can have a look at towards the end of them. Yes, so just one question for John there. Have you done anything or walked what is open at the moment on the Columban Way?
Yeah, I was invited to 1 or 2 meetings there. The Columban Way, I understand now, is that there are sometimes people organised walks along it, right? Now, the ones we have that I went through there is that, they get kind of permissive access for one walk each year. What you can't do, as far as I know, and somebody may correct me on this, is that you can't just set off yourself and walk it. Whereas the Pilgrim Paths we represent in Pilgrim Paths Ireland, any day of the year you can set off on St. Declan's Way, St. Finbarr's, the Toher Forest may close for a month or 2 in the very wet weather. But in general, they're fully way-mapped. You won't get lost. It probably hasn't been developed to a stage that we feel we could, that it could be marketed abroad, but certainly it would be a good idea. It's a very, very long path that's going from Carlow up to Bangor. So I'd say there's a good lot of work to be done on it yet, but I'm not really up to speed on it. Maybe a section of it could be opened and waymarked might be the way to do it.
Okay,
John, you mentioned, sorry, Catherine, you mentioned the work with farmers. What's the general provision? Are the walks separated within the land? And you kind of talked a little bit about, I suppose, a financial assistance to farmers, and is there work that the farmers do? I suppose, how do the Pilgrim Paths tend to involve the farmers in the work, and how do they recruit them in the first place?
Well, the thing is that Pilgrim Path recruits the farmers because it goes through their land. Now, I think the thing is that we have generally not had many access problems because the tradition has been so strong in Ireland. People kind of accept there's a Pilgrim Path through their land. Even though you went to court, you mightn't be able to establish a right of way. But the walk scheme has come in. Now, I'd imagine some of the people on your own would know more about that than I do. But in general, it gives a payment to each farmer, not for allowing access, but actually for the minimum amount of maintenance that needs to be done. And that is per 100 kilometres. Now, as far as I know, and a lot of that maintenance is actually done by people on 2 schemes and that as well as that. So it's not terribly onerous. And was there a second part of that question?
No, that's fine. I think
but it has a huge benefit to us. It gets the farmers on board as well. And rightly so, because what was happening when you went back 20 years ago was you had all these hotels, they'd be promoting walking, Fortran would be promoting walking in Kerry. These people would all dander up to someone's land to go up Carrontool. The hotel made money, everybody made money, the farmers get nothing. I'm not saying they're getting the king's ransom now, but at least they're inside the tent.
A really current issue is the surface of the paths. And again, a question here about, kind to pedestrians and the environment. St. Declan's Way has large sections of Tarmacadam and lacks suitable accommodation at appropriate distances, unlike the Caminos. Should there be support or provision of rural accommodation in farmhouses? Sorry, there's 2 questions there. Can you just deal with the surface of the paths first of all? The conflict between easy access and between turning our greenways, or I know we're not talking greenways here, our pilgrim paths into blackways rather than greenways.
Well, if somebody, I don't know what it costs, but if somebody said to us, you can build a greenway all along St. Declan's Way and everybody was happy down to Ardmore, we'd say no, because obviously you're completely sanitizing the thing. There is no sense of that. So remember that we're always trying to balance that. But pilgrims in the past, it was a tough business. They didn't have always perfect underfoot conditions. Now, at the same time, we can't go back to some of the things that happened then, but we're always conscious that we mustn't over-sanitize the paths as well as that. A bit of gravel here and there, and maybe look, if you do pilgrim paths from time to time, you're going to get your feet wet, and I don't think we can spend millions just avoiding that.
Okay, and accommodation at appropriate distances to kind of support your commercial suggestions there. Supporting for farmhouses.
We had to get the thing up. It's chicken and egg. I mean, nobody's going to do it before we got the path going. Now, I've had 2 or 3 now. Again, this is it. It's Gráinne Moynihan, who is the chair of Pilgrim Path Ireland, who did most of this. We have people now inquiring about setting up B&Bs, of going into providing accommodation with gardens and that. But it's going to be a slow process because the simple fact is 438,000 people completed the Camino. Some of them may not have completed a huge number of walkers. We're lucky we've gotten it up from 0 to maybe 1,500 or thereabouts. We're trying to build it all the time, but it's going to take time. It's not always going to be there, but there are green shoots. That's what I think generally across Ireland, people are recognising it now. But it's getting footfall on it. That's when the community take it really seriously.
Okay, I know we're coming close to the end. Just a comment there that for somebody to make sure they know that these slides and presentations will be available on the Teagasc website as always, and get great. So I think anybody who wants to know anything about Pilgrim Paths will be coming back to this webinar. Just one question, and maybe you can bring Ronan in here, to balance the development for the need for rural development in terms of renewable energy, forestry, and the heritage-rich landscape. About the landscape remaining static. What's your views on the balance needed there? With John, first of all, maybe.
Sorry, I was...
balancing kind of the need for, progressive development with renewable energy and forestry while maintaining the heritage of the past in the landscape.
Yeah, well, I suppose, from our point of view, the ideal scenario that we would like to build up is the lightest possible footfall. Okay, air travel, people are going to enter the country. Once they come in here, they're out on the pilgrim paths. They're almost on zero, they're totally sustainable what they're doing. And then hopefully they don't have to go far off the route. A taxi doesn't have to pick them up and go 10 miles somewhere. The perfect scenario would be like the Camino, where you walk into a small village and your accommodation and everything, and the spending is right there on the site.
There's a question there just asking us, can we just indicate the 5 Pilgrim Path walk, what the 5 Pilgrim Path walks are? And there's another question asking, is there a timeline from, I suppose, the time you start if you're to get your certification?
Yeah, well, I'll go. The answer is there's no timeline. You can take 10 years to do it if you want to, and everybody will recognize your stamp. So the communities that are involved in that are St. Finbarr's Pilgrim Path in West Cork, right? Which is about 37 kilometres. Pinupna Dobber is a stiff little climb, but it's only about 8 or 9 kilometres. That's Cahersivee in County Kerry. Cossananave, one of the most ancient leads, but you don't have to go to the top of Mount Brandon to get your stamp. So it's about 20 kilometres through beautiful the Dingle Peninsula area there, Maria Condor. And then the other two are, I mentioned it, St. Kevin's in Wicklow, which from you can start in either Hollywood or Ballymount and end up in Glendalough, and then the Tupper Forest, which runs from Ballintubber Abbey in Mayo to you don't have to go up Croke Park, you just go more or less across the shoulder of the mountain into Mersk. Those are the 5. You can buy your passport from Ballintubber Abbey or at any of the Pilgrim Path sites around the country, and then you get your certificate if you want it. And that you can take 5 years to do it, 1 a year if you want to. And, there's no time limit whatsoever. But it's a great way because you don't have to be massively fit then. You do maybe 1 weekend's walking and then you may not do it again. Whereas when you're on the Camino, even doing 120 kilometres, if you're not used to it, you'll almost inevitably end up hobbling into Santiago with blisters.
Very good. Any other questions?
Because maybe Ronan would like to again summarise Heritage Week and events.
Yeah, well, I'd say that's an impossible question, Catherine, because there's 2,000 events, over 2,000 events on. I'll just mention quickly a few things. Just on John's team, there's a few guided walks to different pilgrim paths. So if people are inspired now, there's one in Glendalough for St. Kevin's Path, St. Kevin's Way. That's on the 25th of August. There's a talk in the Rock of Cashel about pilgrimage, and that's from Louise Nugent, who's written a very interesting book on medieval pilgrimage in Ireland, which is well worth a read. That's on the 17th, which is tomorrow. There's another talk in St. Declan's Way. There's a guided walk for the Lismore section. That's on the 20th of August. All these events are on heritageweek.ie, and there's another one out in Hollywood, up in Wicklow again, as part of St. Kevin's Way. That's on the 24th of August. So that's a bit of inspiration. And do I have a few minutes just to talk about other events?
Yeah, go on ahead.
So I just mentioned a few rural or farming adjacent events. So people might think Heritage Week is just about old buildings, but there's lots happening. If you're into your sheep, there's a few sheep-related events. There's a Clad the Sheep Heritage Day happening in Letterfrack. So that's promised to be a very interesting day. That's on the 24th of August. That's a whole day event. There's demonstrations and workshops all about Clad the Wool and Clad the Sheep. There's another one taking place in County Roscommon as well, about Roscommon sheep and exploring the roots and connections of Roscommon sheep. And you never think this would be a topic, but as I say, Heritage Week, the topics are amazing that pop up. So that's run by the Roscommon Sheep Breeders Association. That's on the 23rd of August. That's an evening talk at 7 p.m. I would mention as well, we talked about traditional farm buildings. I mentioned it was before. There's a few events happening around the country. Just searching heritageweek.ie about traditional farm buildings, so there's demonstrations of those buildings as well. I'd also mention the Irish Rare Breeds Association are holding an event in Bunratty Castle, and that's on this Sunday. And they're doing a whole day event with they have livestock there, so they're going to be showing the livestock. They're going to do demonstrations, and they're going to be tasting of products derived from rare breeds in Ireland. So that's all your different cattle and sheep rare breeds in Ireland. So that's happening as well. So that's just a small bit of a taster for events. I'm not going to go into many more because there's...
I think what the point you're getting across, though, is there's something there for absolutely everybody.
Yeah, absolutely everybody. It's like I said, from pilgrim paths to sheep, there's absolutely everything. So Heritage Week is not just for history buffs or heritage enthusiasts. If you're looking for something to do this weekend or next weekend or even during the week, I guarantee if you have an interest in a certain area, there's a talk or event on about for Heritage Week. So just go to heritageweek.ie and you'll find something.
Listen, I think we've had a number of comments just saying great presentations, really enjoyed it, and maybe enthuse a lot of us to get out there and get a little bit more in tune with nature and spirituality, if that's your thing, in terms of using the Pilgrim paths. I get a sense, John, that there's potential for more growth in terms of Pilgrim paths out there, and there's a lot of work to be done. You're probably at the start of a job rather than being close to the end of it. So listen, thank you very much. Really appreciate it, your coming on, and wish you all the best with your publications. And thanks again, and thanks to you, Ronan, as well. Next week, we're back, I suppose, to water quality. And we have a talk from Professor Richard McDowell. He's Chief Scientist for Land and Water in New Zealand. And he has some reflections on land use and water quality in New Zealand. So we look forward to seeing you on this day week. Until then, stay safe. Goodbye.
You've been listening to the podcast version of the Teagasc Signpost Series, the weekly webinar that promotes and examines sustainability in Irish farming. Don't forget to join us live every Friday morning for our latest webinar. For more, visit teagasc.ie. And you can also rate, review, and subscribe to the Signpost Series on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. I'm Mark Gibson, and thanks for listening.